Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, just when you thought it was safe to come out of the Christmas. Because here is ConsoleX2. And you can do this. I'm using a different piece of music than before, but it's the one that I used for Chimey Deluxe. And this is the mixing system that I used for doing all of this. Rather than just leaning on the bass guitar, I leaned a little bit harder into using all the things that make ConsoleX2 be what it is. So let's show it to you right now. I'm going to just leave this playing because we don't have it too loud. In fact, I can pull it back just a hair. I'll play this through at the end so that you can hear the full thing at what I would call commercial volume. So let's start spotlighting things. For instance, here is the drums. And here's that bass I was working with before. And the whole thing is not actually to a click so much as it is to soft clock and this one guitar. So what do we do with ConsoleX2 to, if not make this good, then at least make it sound interesting? And I'll show you. First of all, here is a drum kit, and you can see that I've got a variety of things going on here. Again, I can close and turn back on. You can see that I've got the highs boosted to some extent. More is the discontapeity overdrive stuff. It's a slightly more sophisticated version of discontapeity. I'm not using high pass and low pass on this yet. And here what I'm going to have to do is skip back in here so we can hear the drums. Now, what am I doing with the console system to make this be a little more sophisticated than just front of kit mics? I have a front of kit kick mic that's on the floor, and I've taken that and I'm making it be a little bit more interesting with this stuff. Here's the compressor, here's the compressor attack and release speed, and the gate, and you can hear that I am gating this quite seriously. If I didn't, you'd have this. And if I was compressing it differently, this is what uncompressed sounds like. You can see that the lights on attack and release aren't lighting up when they're not engaging. And if you want subtle performance out of the compression, you can make it so that they flash, but we can also squish it. And the speed is set up in such a way that you can get a more interesting sound out of it. We'll turn this up a little bit. And this is meant to blend with the regular mics. But I've also got a snare mic. And this is also using compression. And it's also using EQ, as you can plainly see here. Note that the low pass on the kick mic, even including the compression, the low pass was engaged there. So what's the compression doing here? Well, without it, we don't have the front being smashed off of things, but then you can make an exaggerated sound with this compressor. This is the same one that is in ConsoleH. For my personal use, I wanted to combine it with the 4-band EQ, Smooth EQ2 is what that one is, and simplify things down a little bit. I don't typically find use for bit crushing as much, but I do find use for this kind of stuff. And you can also use things like the release to slow it down. And if you have it dynamic inverting like that, what you can do is back off the compression. Back to the kick drum again. What I was doing with that one was emphasizing the attack on things. Going for a sort of thump and no mid-range sound out of this, and it goes fairly loud. I'm using more to kind of overdrive it a little bit. That brings stuff forwards. And there's a thing that I'm doing with that one. Here I'm opening the bass guitar. This is the bass guitar that I demoed Chimey Deluxe with. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff, most likely with just DI guitars and basses, and using things like Chimey Deluxe and Pointy Deluxe to get sounds. If I'm not happy with those, I'll make more amp plugins in future. But this is with the amp sim dialed down a little bit. And what you can see here, I can also close these other guys to just show only the two. Look at what we're doing with bass and low mid. This is the Ted Templeman trick, where your bass guitar, even if it's doing a certain amount of, like, we're doing some compression on the bass, even though Chimey Deluxe also compresses. But this is all about low mids. If I remove ConsoleX, that's more lows, that's more highs, it's less of the low mids. And then if I bring the kick in, if I turn this off, that's more mid-rangey. But what we're doing is making it have click and extreme low end and combining it with the bass, which is filling in the hole in the kick drum. And both of them are sculpted using the compression and balance. They're both sitting in exactly the same place pan-wise, but they're balancing in other ways. Also, they're both using a certain amount of low pass. Like if we didn't do that low pass, high frequencies are coming in now, but I'm using that low pass to pull it down so that it blends with the rest of the drum mics, so those can supply more of the hi-hats and things. And the whole purpose of this is to be able to have a combined sound even when it's just only this. See, the color story this is telling is sort of bright, glittery cyan colors, and I dialed in the synths for that purpose. We'll start that over again, because this is not actually mine, but ConsoleX2 is. Check this out. That's actually a friend of mine who is responsible for you being able to see all of this stuff here. Because that is a synthesizer made by Sudara, who made Pamplejuice, which is what I use for making these GUIs and stuff. I wouldn't be able to do it without this guy's open source project. And yeah, this is an early access. You could go and buy that synth. I think it's pretty cool. And then we can kick into the actual music. And there you have it. So ConsoleX2 is designed for letting you mix stuff as if you were on a big old traditional mixing console, but with more flexibility for getting here, let me back this off for a second. It was a little bit extra excited, and so my hope was that I'd be able to show you this music properly, which we kind of are. This is what I came up with for demoing this with, and if I turn it down enough that I can talk over it, that's just being done with the fader, meaning that you're still getting some peaks poking through. The record rip that I'm showing people on my $10 and up Patreon is something that also throws peaky, exaggerated sounds up into the top 6 dB or so. My stuff here is a little bit more clipped and saturated. For the $10 and up patrons, I'm demonstrating The Police on Any Other Day, which is a great Stuart Copeland track of early Police music. But this is more like a Grateful Dead riff, really. What I've been doing is practicing on a drum practice pad and practicing with bass playing more often. So when I return to making music in the upcoming year, I ought to be able to do that fairly effectively, because I will have done a little more to get my chops together. Pretty much everything that you hear with me demonstrating these things was me only programming all the time and not actually practicing instruments. So that might change going forward. And also I have that synthesizer from Sudara. It is called, if I'm not mistaken, Sign Machine. In fact, I am not mistaken, it is indeed called Sign Machine. And I'm looking forward to doing interesting things. That is, unlike the Bacon Paul stuff, Sign Machine is not free, but I thought it was pretty affordable. And I bought it. So I get to rave about it because it's not actually a sponsorship deal. He didn't just give me one. He does these things that help me, and I knew about his thing. So if you enjoy that synthesizer, knock yourself out. And yeah, I'm just bouncing around so that I can put this up to final mix level at the end. And I'm probably going to do that after I make my playing mistakes on this track, like there. But then what I'm going to do is stop talking and let it play through. And this is probably a fine time. So here's what you can do with ConsoleX turning up its outputs and using clip-only 2 on the master bus, because it has this sort of soft saturation thing going on. And we'll just listen. Well, there you have it. This is using the same meter as you get in ConsoleH. So if you like that, you'll be able to relate to this. This is using the same compressor and gate system that you have in ConsoleH. So if you like that, you'll appreciate this. This is using the same trim and more system, the same high pass and low pass as you get in ConsoleH. Basically, this is just my personal version that works on my control surface back there. I came up with a way of using it with a new ConsoleX version to my design, and that is this one. That is ConsoleX2. And yeah, Christmas apparently wasn't quite over. Seems like a perfectly fine day to give you something amusing and interesting to distract yourself. I'm going to be doing more music going forwards into the new year, Because at this stage, like, I don't know if you can relate to this. It's always been a thing of, oh, I'm scared people are going to say bad things about me. Like, you tried to make music and it was bad. And it's always frightened and worried me, the idea that I would try to make something as well as I could, and somebody would be like, that's bad. And then you'd feel terrible. And well, look around us. I'm not going to let anything stop me, and neither should you. Enjoy ConsoleX2. You can do this. Go out and make some kind of music. Make something up. Nobody's going to pay you for it. Nobody's going to pay for music pretty much ever again now that AI has come. Do stuff. Do stuff. I'm going to be doing stuff. If somebody says it's bad, yeah, look around you. Give me a break. I could probably end up doing like lead vocals on live stream at this stage. I do not care whether somebody's like, oh, you should feel bad because you sang badly. Come on. Get out there and make some stuff. I will give you toys and things and tools. I'll give you the video game that I'm working on. And knock yourself out. This is a time to go and do things. Because why not? On that note, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.